Welcome to 44 and 1 with GVizzle and Tempest. Like and subscribe, and here we go.
Sir, have you heard of the oyster drama?
The oyster drama? No.
Oyster
Sounds
drama.
epic.
It was actually, I saw the video about it. I'll tell you all about it. But then they actually commented on it on Saturday Night Live Weekend Update. So here's the situation. This guy asked this girl out over the course of a few weeks. She keeps saying no. Side note, men, when women say no, believe them. Take the no. Take the no. Because when she actually did say yes to this guy, she says herself in her video, I was bored and I had time to kill.
Yeah.
Women. Don't say yes if you don't mean it. Anywho. So he asks her out for drinks. She says, yes, let's go to this place for drinks. As she is walking to the restaurant, I think she is saying that this place has amazing oysters, a dozen for $15. He's invited her for drinks. She orders a dozen oysters. Then she orders a second dozen, then a third, then a fourth. She is recording herself the entire time. And I think she's low-key recording it because you can only see the plate of lobsters in her fingers and you can hear all the slurping.
Oh.
So he's invited her out for drinks. She has slurped her way through 48 oysters, then orders an entree on top of that. So this guy excuses himself to go to the men's room and never comes back.
Good man.
So then she texts him and says, like, you just walked out. That's crazy. And he says, I invited you out for drinks and you ordered a whole meal. Like,
yeah.
What did you expect? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we have a word for people like that. She's a munter.
A what?
Well, actually, usually you call somebody a munter if they're not very good looking, but she has a munting personality. Absolutely vile.
New one for me. There's, like, I want to feel empathetic towards him, but he asked her out for weeks. Like, she doesn't like you, guy. Just stop. Yeah. It's not a Hallmark movie where you're going to wear her down. You're going to have some sort of meet cute. She's going to fall in love. She doesn't like you. Just let it go.
Just leave it, yeah.
And maybe she kept the door open when she was saying no. Maybe it wasn't a definitive, no, I don't like you, stop asking me out, or not now, I'm busy. So
she sounds crafty.
She does sound crafty. Apparently she's done it again. I think I saw her pop up again, somebody else with crawfish. But like, he asked her out for drinks. He was expecting to spend what, $30-$40 on drinks, and then she orders upwards of $100 worth of food and cocktail.
Yeah, fuck that. No, I think he did the right thing. Like, you kind of you state a contract. You say, do you want to go out for drinks? That means you go out for fucking drinks. And actually, in my mind, it means that we're sharing the cost. Like, I would expect you to buy me a couple of drinks if I'm taking you out for drinks. I'll buy you a couple, you buy me a couple.
That's fair. I think the old standard that I heard growing up was whoever asks pays. Yeah. And if it's a mutual, let's get together, want to get together, then it's you split the bill.
I think it depends if, like, what the date is. Like, if you're going out for dinner, like, I'd probably phrase it a different way. I'd be like, can I take you out for dinner? You know, and then then I've said I want to take you out for dinner, so I'm paying. Right?
That makes sense. Totally makes sense. So when I first heard it, my thought was the same as yours. I was like, good for you, fella. But then they're both adults, right? There was both an opportunity for them to communicate. Had I been her and I really wanted oysters, I would have said, you know what? Is it cool if I'm going to order some oysters? Is that cool with you? And then he could have had the opportunity to say, you know what? Let's put it on a separate bill. Or I would have said, I'm going to put my oysters on a separate bill. When she ordered the oysters, he could have then said to the server, put the drinks on my tab, put the oysters on her. There could have been communication.
But I don't know. I think it's, if we see it the way that it is, the way it played out, I wouldn't have just walked out because I would have had to say something. I'd be like, what the fuck do you think you're playing at? I probably would have said that at the first oysters, I probably would have let go, right? All right, she's a bit rude, but, you know, if I'm having a good time, I'll turn a blind eye to it. The second lot of oysters, I would have said, hey, are you paying for that? You know?
But I don't even know if they had a good time because the entire video is just her slurping back oysters and like talking to the oysters. This is good.
And that's it.
And they don't, they didn't even clear the plates So you just see her piling a dish on top of another dish on top of another dish.
With zero self-awareness of how gross she looks.
Well, and she knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
Like her words, I'm bored and I have time to kill.
Yeah.
That's not why you go out with somebody. Go out with them if you like him. If you don't like him, say no, be definitive in your no, and cut.
Yeah, don't
cut
fucking use people like they're there for your entertainment. It's disgusting. Absolutely foul behavior. I think that
48 oysters. Like I have never.
No, that's insane. And then I think as well, like when it comes to this stuff, I think this isn't victim blaming at all, but like the bloke, he could have saved him this trouble. He could have saved himself the trouble by being a bit more savvy and a bit more assertive and more communicative. I think there are things that he could personally work on so that he doesn't get taken advantage of again. I think there's some development work he could do.
Because he felt his only recourse was to
run away.
Cut and run. Yeah, to run away, when he could have said, I appreciate that the oysters are good here, but we're putting those on your tab.
Yeah.
Could have set the stage right there. Because she posted a video, I think, clearly thinking she was going to get sympathy from people being like, I can't believe he did that to you. Meanwhile, she's like,
yeah, all of the oysters. She absolutely devastated the oyster population.
Apparently, because she showed the restaurant, apparently over the next couple of days, they sold out of oysters.
Oh, wow.
She's been good for, which, you know what? I've never thought of it in these terms before, because we never see the bloke. We never see him. We never see her.
It was advertising.
Always sees the oysters. That's what I'm thinking. Remember, you had that whole conversation before about like shady type of advertising. This could have been advertising for the restaurant.
Could have been. Legit could have been. Because it is crazy to eat 48 oysters. Like, I've never heard anybody doing something like that. People do weird shit, but like this is quite extreme.
That feels like almost competition eating level of oysters. And then an entree on top of that. How are you? Oysters aren't my thing. Texturally, I don't care for them. But I don't know. I mean, I've eaten mussels and clams. Those I love. And I don't think I could eat 48 mussels or clams and then another entree on top of that. She ordered crab cakes and potatoes on top of that. It must have been an ad, because there can't. I mean, not that I'm shaming her if that is her appetite. Good on you, but that's a lot of food.
It's a lot of a very specific kind of food, and surely your chance of food poisoning is just escalating with every dish of oysters under those warm lights.
Although I would suspect a place that I got food poisoning from chicken once, and the only place I will trust chicken is a chicken restaurant, because I feel like that's your bread and butter. So if they are known for their oysters, then I would expect them to be good.
So, one of the things about the video is that supposedly she swears a lot and says a few expletives and things or whatever. Like, she was eating oysters. Like, what is she going? Oh,
It was some of it was on the way in to the restaurant. She was talking about this guy and how he's asked me out for weeks, and I always said no. And then I can't tell, because you can't see her. I don't know if a lot of it were the actual noises she was making while she was eating, or if she then overdubbed it or recorded over it, because I cannot imagine. I cannot imagine sitting across from somebody and hearing 48 times. I would stab them with their fork. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it unless I was participating. If I was doing the same, we make the same noises, and that's fine. But
oh, no way. And I think this is kind of the state of dating at the moment, it seems. Like, all these really narcissistic people on the dating scene. I mean, that to me is alien. Like, I can't imagine being on the dating scene. That's weird.
It does feel weird. And I spend some time on Reddit. I cultivate my Reddit thread to purposefully upset me most times, so I can find content for the podcast. So based on what I'm seeing on Reddit, which is tends to be a bit of a cesspool, the dating scene is abysmal. Like, and it's so contrary or contradictory. So there's a subreddit that I'm on where men are constantly talking about women like this who expect men to pay, and why should men pay? Men shouldn't have to pay. If we're equal rights, we shouldn't have to pay. But then all these surveys, and they like to give out surveys like, here's a survey that some weird dating site did that has absolutely no credibility and says this thing. They love that one. But then all the surveys that have been done, there was one in 2017 and one in 2019 that were actually better done than the survey they like to quote, says 70 to 80% of men think they should pay on a first date.
Yeah.
So they like to hide that content, but there's a lot of men who shit talk women because women have more choices. If they're especially on online dating sites, if you've got one guy, he may be swiping on 50 women, but that one woman is getting 50 guys swiping on her. So there's definitely a disparity in the who's getting more matches, which I think is why women feel like, I'm just going to take this guy for a ride.
I think that it also puts women in a difficult position and gets them to pay attention to things they wouldn't usually do, because it's training women to be really superficial in a way that women tend not to actually be in real life. Like generally speaking, women are really good at compromise, you know, and it's like, well, you know, he's a bit short, but he's funny, or like he's a bit too tall for me, but you know, he's easy to get on with, like shit like that. And that's normal.
Takes away all the nuance of dating.
Yeah. And like, so it kind of gets women to look at like the wrong things, again, that just aren't natural for them to consider. And then
because if you're out and about and you look at the men in everyday life who are in couples, right? I'm outside all the time, right? I walk the dogs, I go for walks, and I see couples all the time, and they're holding hands, and I can see them. And it's not the 6 foot tall chads that are walking down the street looking happy with their partners. So if you can filter people out by their height or their location or their status, then you are getting this little weird pool of people that you're ignoring people that you wouldn't ignore in real life.
Yeah, and the other thing is that they what was I going to say? Fuck. Hasn't happened in a while.
It hasn't. Looks like that's not a thinking cap you're wearing.
No, it's not. No, it's it was cold. And also got a bad hair day. Yeah, so they're training women to look at things they wouldn't usually look at. And also it's many using it to base their opinions on women about, like, so they're basing it all on women who use dating apps, which is a minority of women. Like hardly in the grand total of women on the planet, a very small percentage of them use dating apps at any one time.
And there's a lot of people who are using dating apps for different reasons. There's a lot of women who are on dating apps to promote their OnlyFans or to find sugar daddy, or it's not as sincere as maybe it was once upon a time when it was new and kind of, you didn't tell people. Like I used to work with a guy, I think 15 years ago, who met his wife on a dating app, and they were both super shady about it.
Don't tell anyone.
And now people are like, I'm on Tinder and Bumble and this. It's different. And it does form a lot of these weird opinions. But I think then there's a lot of misconceptions and distrust. And I think then it breeds a lot of resentment on both sides, which is not doing any favors for anybody.
No, it's so unnatural. I mean, when you think about anybody that you formed any kind of relationship with in any way, like whether it's at work or a friend or whatever, there always has to be that normal interaction with them where you feel them out and like, what kind of a person are they? And, you know, the stakes are pretty high when it comes to choosing a partner. And they're doing it in like, it's like, you know, we talk about parasocial relationships on social media. Well, that's what a dating app is as well. You're forming a parasocial relationship with a fucking comment box where you're... There's got
to be a right and a wrong way to do it effectively. Like years ago, I worked with a woman who was on a lot of dating apps, but she would exchange messages and talk to guys for months before they met for the first time. And then by the time they meet, they know everything about each other. So there's not that first date excitement. Yeah, there's that first date excitement is gone. And then if you've spent all this time, like there was one in particular, I remember she spent a few months talking to this guy. She thought he was the one. And when they met, there was no physical chemistry between the two of them.
Exactly.
So I think there's a way of chat for, a little bit, see if you have any common interests, and then do the
Well,
first date thing.
the
Don't
way-
immediately meet each other.
The way it used to be on like the lonely single columns, whatever they called them in newspapers, that
Yes.
would just be it. Like you'd have the thing and you'd meet for the day, you know, so you'd be able to write to somebody and say, you know, let's go meet. And I just think the best way of doing it is to not really interact with the people. Don't go into that much detail before you meet them. But then again, like, because I think women are probably trying to protect themselves from predators, so you have to talk. And men are trying to get up the guts to ask a woman out.
It's a weird balancing act.
I would say just fucking don't use dating apps. Meet people normally. I've never had.
But that's the problem. That's the problem, is that it's hard to meet people normally, especially
not,
since
though.
like if you spend time on Reddit, right? There's the extremes on Reddit. So there's women who are saying don't approach women in public. So men take that to mean don't even look at a woman in a public space, which is you don't approach a woman in a place where she's not expecting to be approached. Someone's at a grocery store or walking to their car in a parking lot, especially. There's times where you don't just walk up to people. Like there was one guy who posted, can't remember if we've already talked about this or not, but this guy walked up, this woman is getting out of work. She's standing between two parked cars waiting to cross the street. This guy walks over to her and he was like, hey, you're really beautiful. Can I take you out on a date? And the guys were like, what? He was nice. What's the problem? And women were like, holy shit, he could have pushed me into traffic, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like the thought processes are very different. So I get women having to protect themselves, which is tell your friends where you're going to be, go to a public space, meet them there. Don't let them know where you live. There's a lot that can go around it versus let's chat for 6 months and then meet. And it's like, oh,
is that what you are? I wasted all my time.
I feel as sexually towards you as I do my brother. Like,
yeah, exactly. And that
chemistry important.
And that part of that reason could be because they spent so much time talking and getting to know each other in the way that they did. Their brain didn't get all of those other chemicals and all the other lovey-dovey stuff.
Very true, because there wasn't that, eye contact, the smiles, the flirting. It's tougher to do that when you're just texting or well, what the fuck do I know? I've been with my husband for almost 28 years.
Yeah, but you still know, though. I mean, you talk to people and read Reddit, so...
That's true. If Reddit is any indication, which thank goodness it is not, I would just... just shut it up for business like a Barbie doll.
yeah, exactly.
Just seal it up.
But this is what I don't get, though, is like people say that, oh, you can't meet anybody anywhere. And all right, I've been with my partner for 9 years now, but I didn't find it that hard to meet people before. Like, it wasn't a big thing.
Motives play a huge part of it, because there are some, there will be women and men in the comment sections saying, join a club, join a group, join a hobby. And then the guys are like, well, what? I can't just like get there and just walk up to a girl and say, I want to take you out. It's like, no, don't join something. Dude. You're not joining someone with joining a group with the intent of meeting somebody. You're joining a group because there are people there with common interests, and then you can meet people within that group and see if you have something in common.
Yeah.
You don't join a hiking group and walk up to the first person and be like, nice shoes, let's date.
Yeah.
You want to hike together for a bit? Let's strike a conversation.
You have to be in the world doing things in it to increase your chances of meeting somebody. But you have to enjoy the things that you do, and then that's how you know you share an interest.
Exactly, you don't just join something. You don't join something with the purpose of meeting people.
Yeah.
Especially if it's disingenuous, if you don't enjoy doing that thing, and you're like, I'm just going to do this for as long as it takes me to get laid, and then I'm out. Then
and it'd be like, oh, I'm going to go down to the local board game club this week. Hopefully, I'll meet some pussy there while I'm there. Getting a board game poontang.
Minge, is that what you call it? Minge?
Yeah.
That's gross.
It is, isn't it?
I actually did have to, I was looking up, my Google search history is certainly going to get me on a watch list. I was looking up old-timey slang for vagina. And the ladies' low toupee, I think, is one of my favorites.
Low toupee.
And for men, I was looking for men, but the one that just popped up was the silent flute.
Silent flute. Tom Green did a song about it, didn't he, for the words for penis?
Did he?
Yeah. It was
I'll have to look that up.
It was pet names for genitalia. There you go. Everyone go look at that. Because it is based on We Didn't Start the Fire.
Oh.
So he parodied that. Yeah.
Yeah. There was an Office sketch. I don't know if you ever watched The Office,
Yes.
the American version of The Office,
Yes.
where Ryan burnt his cheesy bread or whatever.
Yeah.
Ryan started the fire.
Yeah. No, I liked the American Office up until Steve Carell left, and then it was already going a bit long in the tooth by that point anyway.
Yeah, it had kind of overstayed its welcome, jumped the shark a little bit. I did like James Spader's character from
Yeah, he was good.
but also I love James Spader. So.
He's fantastic. Yeah. Now, did he have a toupee in that season? Because his hair fell out really quick. Like, it seemed to happen overnight.
That's an excellent question. He may. I think it was a little bit thinning, but then he did what most, I think, men should do, is just shave it off. Just do it. I mean, I think Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, is the only one who gets away with
Yeah.
I don't even know what you call it.
I think I'm not against guys wearing like hair pieces or something, because they got some really good quality ones these days.
Absolutely.
Well, it's not like William Shatner wearing his hairpiece in the Star Trek movies. Looks a bit weird. But now
I didn't know. I think Ted Danson has one, and really? I don't think I think I could be wrong, but I remember hearing that a long time ago that he had one, and if he does, it's excellent quality. Yeah,
because it's such full hair.
It is, and I don't know that some men really rock the bald. Like, they look amazing bald. I don't know if Ted Danson could pull it off because he's so tall. I don't know how that would work on him.
Yeah. I look like a Soviet conscript while I shave my head. But yeah. Okay.
How often do you think about the Roman Empire?
Probably at least on a monthly basis, I reckon.
Are you for real? Seriously?
Yeah, probably. But there's a lot of reasons for me to think about it though. So well, like me and my partner talk about it sometimes. She's an anthropologist, I'm a psychologist. One of our favorite book series is about a private investigator that works in the for one of the Roman emperors. And it was a woman that wrote the series. She's written like 20 books about this private investigator in the Roman Empire. It's amazing.
Oh, slow it down, sir. What is the book series called? Who is the author? Let me get my trusty pen.
I can't remember her name now.
Are you kidding? You said this is your favorite book series.
Yeah, I know. Hang on, I'll find it. Hang on. This is one of them. Lindsay Davis is her name. She's a historian. But
okay.
So this is the first one. I don't know if is this the first one. The Silver Pigs.
Do you have to read them in order, or can they be read out of order?
It's better to read them in order. Just because he has like an ongoing storyline stuff, and because he's basically like a nobody, but then he ends up having this love affair with a senator's daughter, and it's all very you shouldn't be doing that sort of thing.
And then how does he become a private investigator?
That's what his job is when we find him. We come across him in the first book. That is actually his job. And he ends up working for the Roman emperor for some reason. But he was basically doing PI work for people in the city, because he used to be a Roman legionary. And then him and his best mate got like an early discharge for some reason. And they were able to go back to Rome. And yeah, and it's a lot better than I'm making it sound, honestly. It's so good.
I do enjoy like private investigator or cop books that are set not now, because it makes it tougher. Like, I just finished listening to a couple of books where it was set in 1985. So it's just at the cusp of, like, they knew what DNA was and how it could help, but they weren't there yet. So they were trying to solve crimes and trying to figure it out without cell phones or any of the things that they would have now, which makes it a much more fun crime to solve.
I think so. And then that's what he's got to do in Didius Falco is his name. And he's basically got to like solve these things in the times of the Roman Empire. So it's brilliant. And
interesting, because there was a lot of like religiosity and superstition. So that would
Yeah.
factor into investigation too.
Yeah, he's not really big on the whole religion thing himself. So like there's a lot of that as well, that different people have different thoughts and beliefs, and I think he believes in the gods, but he's not like beholden to them, sort of thing.
Gotcha.
So,
Interesting. I shall check that out.
but the weirdest thing with this whole Roman Empire trend is that, 'cause I did a video on TikTok about it, and there's basically one of the things that women are saying their issue with it is that their partners or boyfriends or whatever think about this thing a lot and never talk about it. And they're like, how can they not talk about it? And I'm like, well, it's kind of healthy to have your own world.
True, but I was shaken, not stirred, about how many men actually think. But like, I asked my husband if he ever thinks about the Roman Empire, and he was like, no. Never, unless he's watching a movie about the Roman Empire, he is not thinking about the Roman Empire. So I just thought it was a very oddly specific thing that is widespread, that men tend to be thinking about on a regular enough basis.
Well, another reason why I think about it is because I try and practice Stoicism, which Marcus Aurelius, the best Roman Empire there ever was basically the best Stoic, or one of the best, you know. And it's like another guy, Cicero. He was brilliant at rhetoric and politics, and like he's worth reading. There was just a lot of great minds around that time that we can learn a lot from now, because they made all the fucking mistakes. So because they made all the mistakes, we shouldn't be making them, and yet we're making them again and again and again.
What do they say? Just history repeats itself?
Yeah.
Or is that the phrase, or was it something about an
like
echo or a mirror or something?
Yeah, if you don't pay attention to history, you'll forever be a child, basically. And then one of my favorite TV shows, Rome, that was amazing, and it had Ray Stevenson, who passed away last year. He was
so sad. I loved him. He was such a great actor.
He was, yeah, and so he was in Rome. I want to watch that again because he died, so maybe want to watch it again. And I think that I can't speak for all of the guys, obviously, but for me, it's because of all the lessons that they learned, everything that we're able to know about it, because their civilization was advanced enough that a lot of the stuff survived that we can learn from. And there's a lot of stuff about them that is just really interesting. I mean, if you look up the Siege of Masada, it shows you how the military can solve any single fucking problem, except how to get men and women working together is the one they can't solve. But that aside, but the Siege
we've sorted that one out since, though, haven't we?
But the Siege of Masada, though, nothing to do with men and women, but it's when Rome was trying to subjugate the Jewish people in Palestine, and then they had a castle called Masada. It's at the top of it's like a plateau on top of this giant cliff, and there's only, I think, 2 ways up it, and they're like really narrow tracks. And so that they thought they were safe from the legions, because they're like, okay, we're fine up here, we'll just wait them out, and then the Romans eventually get bored and bugger off. And it's like, no, the Roman legion won't just bugger off. What they'll do is they'll fucking build their own ramp going up the side of this massive cliff, and they'll just use manpower. And they just kept putting layer upon layer of dirt and rocks and everything, and then just marched up the fucking side of this mountain, and then all the Jews killed themselves.
And they just watched them come up. They watched them build it all.
Yeah, over like 3 months it took. And it's just, like like if you think of how long the Roman Empire was around for, hundreds of years, it's full of stuff like that. You know? So, yeah.
So that's why men are thinking about it.
Not all men. Hashtag not all men. There is a bit of a movement among like, just idiots, I guess, that kind of see all the machismo, the warfare, and all of like men being men and women being grateful and that sort of shit. And that's why they're thinking about it. And that's pathetic.
I have seen a couple of comments on Reddit that say that promiscuous women and women with high body counts is actually the words that they use, is what led to the fall of the Roman Empire.
Yeah, that's bollocks.
And that's what some hashtag not all men. That's what some men believe.
Yeah, that's bollocks. And it's, I think that if the women who are worried about it, I think if they look into it, they will find that like you got guys like me that are interested in everything about it, like culture and politics and all that, and then you got dickheads. And then I think they're the ones that that I think the women are most surprised about, is that like their partners are thinking about this stuff on that primitive level sort of thing. You know, because that would put me off, thinking that I thought I knew someone, and it's not so much that they've got this hobby or interest I didn't know they had. That wouldn't bother me. It's the fact that they're thinking in a very misogynistic, like cultish manner about something that they don't even know anything about.
True. I would be like, when I asked my husband how often he thinks about the Roman Empire, if he had said, I think about it at least once a week, I would be surprised by that. Even if he thought of it with the same interest that you have, where it's about, you know, learning about the history and from that aspect of it, I would still feel like, really? Like, you never thought like, oh, this is kind of a cool thing. I would just, it would be weird to me that he had, not that he shares every crazy thought that pops into his head, but if he thought about something with that type of frequency and regularity, I would be surprised not to know about it.
Yeah, I think on the women's part, I think I detected some sort, I think, insecurity from younger women that, you know, because they're not married to someone, and then they're talking about their boyfriends. So I was wondering if there's a bit of insecurity there, because a guy that's been married for 22 years and with his partner for 27, if you don't know that he's thinking about something like that long, that would be weird. Like if my partner, we've been together 9 years, and if she didn't know that I had that fascination with it, or that I watched Star Trek or something like that, The Dark Tower was one of my favorite book series, it would be surprising for her not to know that. So some communication is wrong. I think, but for the women who are like probably early 20s and they're in a relationship with somebody, but they're in the early stages of it, I think I'm wondering if it's like an insecurity thing, that like, oh, he has this hobby, but he never tells me about it. I want to know what he's thinking.
That's an interesting point. And I think it would depend on where they are in their relationship. In early days, I don't think they should be surprised, because that's when you're learning things about each other. And sometimes things don't come up. Even a few years into my relationship, we were still learning things about each other, because there were just the opportunity to learn that thing had never reared its head before. But if you've been with somebody for more than 5 or 6 years, then I would be surprised. I would be surprised. But early days, I mean, isn't that when it's exciting to learn things about people? Like, oh, I didn't know that about you. I didn't know that about you. Like, I still, occasionally, I will still learn something about my husband. Usually it's around something that, like, I'll feed him to eat. And he's like, I don't like this. I'm like, oh, I didn't know.
Didn't know that.
I did not know you like this.
Well, you're an adult, so you can fucking eat it, whether you like it or not.
That's how it goes down in our house.
Just
move it aside.
I think if I was one of those women, I think that I would want to find out what it is they're thinking about the Roman Empire. It's not so much that they are, or even that I didn't know they were. It's just, okay, but this might tell me something about you as a person. True. What are your values? And that sort of thing. And then the kind of interest that people have, it does tell you a lot about what kind of a person they are. And you want to know that if you're in the first year or two of a relationship, you will want to find out how they think about these things.
It's shocking to me how little some people communicate in relationships.
Yeah.
And again, I know Reddit is not indicative, but I'd spent a lot of time there. And like, there are so many people who pop up into either the Am I the Asshole or the relationship advice thread or the child free thread that are like, I've been with this person for 3 years. I thought we both didn't want to have kids, but now they wanted to have kids this entire time and kept thinking I was going to change my mind. So there's a lot of important conversations that aren't happening until it's way too late.
And what, like, I always wonder as well, like, what is their motivation for not having that conversation? Are they scared? Did they just not think it was important at the time, or what?
There were a couple of instances where the person who was seeking advice said that their partner didn't think they thought they would change their mind, right? That would be like me and my husband being together for 5 years. And then I'm like, no, I'm not going to have kids. It's like, oh, really? I thought you'd come around eventually. It's the hope that they're going to change their mind or that they can convince them
Mm.
to do it.
Jesus.
I know. And there are some things that are just deal breakers. There are things you can get around. You know, I know couples who are in, you know, they come from different religious backgrounds, but they make it work because they respect each other's beliefs in that way. So you can make that work. But children or no children, that's
fundamental.
not something you can, that's not something you can work around.
No, because there will be a resentment at some point. You know, it's, and the thing is, yeah, I mean, it does depend on how much you want the children. But if it's more than just like, oh, kids would be cool. If it's more than that, then you have to kind of think, you know, is that the right? Is it right to allowing yourself being strung along like that?
Yeah. And there are some couples that don't have, and I guess, you know, this is actually fair because my husband and I also never had this conversation, but there's somebody I saw in a thread yesterday who was struggling because their sister, they're in a child-free relationship, still firmly child-free. One of the partners, their sister, is being investigated for child abuse. So the children are going to be removed from her care.
Jesus.
And this her child-free sister is now telling her husband, we got to take these kids in because they're my nieces and nephews. We got to take them in. And he is saying, no, but I don't want to raise my kids. I don't want to raise somebody else's kids. I don't want to have anything to do with this. So now people are calling him, you know, the selfish asshole for being willing to end this relationship. But it's been a fundamental change to their agreed upon terms of their relationship. Even if, it's the right thing to do to take these kids in, but that doesn't mean it's the right thing for him to do because he has very firmly said, no kids. And
it doesn't mean that that he has to say yes, does it? I mean, I don't understand where people think they're coming from on that. It's like, my sister doesn't have kids, thank fuck, but I'm not taking her kids in, you know, and my partner wouldn't want me to either.
And there are some people who were calling him selfish for you're not sacrificing for and this has also been the reverse. So before you say we're shit talking men, no, not at all. Because there was another situation where a woman was put in the same position where people are like, well, you're being really selfish because sometimes you need to sacrifice for your partner. It's like, that's not something that you sacrifice for your partner. You don't say, exactly. There are some things you sacrifice. Absolutely. Yeah. I'll give up my office so these kids can move in. If you're willing to take these kids in, I'll sacrifice my office, but I'm not going to sacrifice my life, my lifestyle, how I've chosen to live that life. And people are trying to make them feel bad about it. It's like, no, if that possibility existed, that relationship never would have been entered into.
Exactly. And yeah, I'd support their decision, to be honest, because it's not just that they're going to be a drain on the time and their lifestyle's changing, but it's also money. One kid costs like, what, 15, 20 grand a year? Fuck that.
I think the last survey or research study that I had heard about it was that raising a child in the United States to the age of 18 costs $250,000.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure people wouldn't be so quick to say he has to take the kids if they knew the statistics on child mortality and who kills the kids in homicides.
Wow, that went dark. But
yeah, but it's when the father figure in the home isn't the biological father. It massively increases.
So this guy had said that in this situation, the last one I heard was, you know, the wife was saying, I don't want these kids in my home, and people were giving her shit for it. He has now, and when she did it, she said, I just don't want to have children. I don't want to raise children. I don't want them around me. Not that I don't like kids. I just don't want them. This guy is like, no, I fucking hate kids. He's like,
yeah, exactly. And like,
I hate children. I hate being around children. I especially hate my nieces and nephews because their mother has not raised them well and they're a nightmare. So it's not like he would even there's not even a possibility he would warm up to these kids if he decided to take them in. And he himself had said, these children deserve to be in a home with people who love them and will care for them. And I'm not that guy. He knows he's not that guy.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is that kids deserve to be loved. And he's being honest and saying, I'm not going to love them, for one thing. The second thing is they're going to be damaged children. And so you're going to put these kids who have potentially been abused, and you're going to put them into another household where they're not going to be loved. Like, do you want to put the kids through
the right thing?
Yeah,
he's absolutely doing the right thing by saying, you bring the kids in, sure, but then I'm exiting.
Yeah, exactly. And Yeah, I fully respect him for that, to be honest, because it's too often people are kind of browbeaten and pushed into making decisions like that because people pull the heartstrings and they play on people's emotions, you know?
People are very quick to call other people selfish and like
Yeah.
it's a bad thing. And there are some instances where it's okay to be selfish. If this guy is he recognizes that he's not going to be able to give these kids the care and the love that they deserve. He also knows that it's going to, if these kids are young, this is a commitment he's making of 12 to 15 years.
Yeah.
Why isn't it okay to be selfish in those terms? You really want somebody to put aside their entire life for a decade or a dozen years just to be the nice guy for somebody else. Like there are times where it's okay to put yourself first, and that is definitely one of them.
Yeah, I think it checks out on all angles here. Like you consider every aspect of it, the guy's doing the right fucking thing.
Absolutely.
And then if I was with somebody that was trying to pressure me into doing it and they'd listened to my reasoning on all of this and she still wanted me to do that, I'd be like, what kind of a fucking person are you? Do you want to put these kids and me through that? You know?
Exactly. And the way, if I'm thinking of my husband and I, if we had ever been put in that situation, then we would have the conversation and then the decision would be an informed decision. I would know, or he would know, not bringing these children into the house is going to have these consequences and after effects. Bringing them in is going to have these consequences. It's make that choice. Either way, it's a shitty choice because if she says no to bringing these children in because of him, eventually she's going to resent it or she's going to be angry that these kids are not with the family. So likely the relationship is going to break down eventually. If she brings the kids in because he finally agrees to it and then he's not happy, like either way, that any decision made is going to be a shitty decision for the couple. So do what's best for the kids.
Yeah. And I wonder if like she's maybe underestimating how difficult it would be for him and the kids to be in the same house together, living together for 12 years.
There's a lot that goes into that decision. And I think some people get blinded by, let's do what's best for the kids. Let's disrupt the kids. And without thinking how it's going to affect your own life. Because she's rightfully thinking about the children, but has she considered what that looks like for them as a couple, as a family, their lifestyle, their finances, everything, their future plans, like everything changes from that point.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it is best for the kids anyway in that specific situation to get them somewhere that's going to be stable for them. You know, in this case, they're going to be with family. So they're going to be taken in by their aunt. If their uncle's not going to be there, well, then that's unfortunate, but the aunt will be there. Yeah. If it was me in that position, all right, this is what I would honestly do if I was that guy. I'd be like, no fucking way am I donating any of my time or my money or anything to these children that I don't want, and they're nothing to do with me. They're not my blood relations, nothing. The only reason why they're in my life is because they're your extended family. But I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll move out. You can live with them in the house. I'll live nearby. We can still have a relationship, but you can raise the fucking kids because I don't want anything to do with them.
Interesting perspective.
Yeah. It's like, to me, I'll be like, look, because it might only be temporary, it might only be for a couple of years, but I'm not going to put our relationship through that because the relationship wouldn't last. And I'm not going to put those kids through that because I wouldn't be a good role model for them. And clearly, the partner in this hypothetical scenario, like, it means a lot to her to give these kids this home. And it's like, well, I'm not going to force you to make that choice because whichever choice you make, because you're not going to be able to live with yourself with whatever choice you're forced to make. And I'm not the kind of guy to give somebody an ultimatum in a Sophie's choice scenario. So I just think I'll just remove myself from the decision-making process because we don't have to live together to have a relationship. And then you can do what you could do right by the kids on what you need to do. And then we can still have our relationship.
I don't know how that would work out though.
But because it's me, I know it would work out because I'm pretty adaptable to that stuff. So
you may be, but she may not be because
that's her problem.
Definitely is. Yeah, you're right. It is.
Yeah. She's creating the situation by wanting to take the brats in the first place. So, I'm trying to do the best I can. in this difficult situation by kind of just going, you know.
But also you have to wonder, is she even if I was willing, so if I was in that situation, if I was willing to bring these kids in, am I the best person to do that? Because willingness doesn't mean I'm going to be good at it or I'm going to enjoy it. Just because I feel some sort of obligation because I'm related, am I the best person for that kid? Living my entire life as someone who has never wanted to have children, I'm likely not going to be that best person for them because I don't have that maternal instinct. So doing something out of obligation, yeah, it's the right thing to do, but are you going to be the best for that kid versus somebody who wants to bring in and raise and care for children?
And then when you're doing it on like week 1, you're fine. Week 2, you're fine. But what about week 52, week 62, 72? What about 12 years down the line? You know, people don't think in those terms of like, these are long sentences you're giving yourself.
So there was a woman who had posted, she was looking for relationship advice because her and her boyfriend had been together for, I think, 5 or 6 years, both child-free.
Yeah.
Adamantly child-free. Then her grandmother gets ill and the grandchildren fly in from wherever they are to be at grandma's bedside when she passes. After this takes place, the boyfriend then says, I've changed my mind. I want to have children because I don't want to die by myself. That's his reason for having kids, because all these grandchildren came in to be around their grandmother. So he's going to have children, raise children, be on the hook for them financially, spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, just so 75 years from now,
he'll have people around his deathbed.
He'll have someone on his bedside.
That's ridiculous.
Honestly, here's a business opportunity for us.
Yeah.
We could, this international business you do in the UK, I'll do it here in Canada. They used to have, once upon a time, they used to be professional mourners that you could hire to come to your grave, to your funeral, and cry to make a scene. So we need to have professional deathbed sitters. Where if you are child-free or your children have gone no contact with you or vice versa, and you want people around your deathbed, say no more. Call 1-800-DEATHBED, and we will gather up a bunch of people to be around you, looking sad and holding your hands as you pass on to the afterlife.
Yeah, nobody has to die alone.
Exactly. That's the tagline.
Yeah. Partner told me about this bloke she used to work with, and it was the best sort of just karma story I'd ever heard, because there's like this whole thing around women are just gonna get old and live with cats and all that, and women are generally like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And then blokes like, oh,
threaten me with a good time.
Yeah. So there's this woman that she worked with, who like back then at the time, she'd had her partner had been like working away a lot, and he's in the hotels all the time and all that stuff, and she had to sacrifice her career and help raise the kids and stuff like that. But then when the tables flipped, right, and then she was away all the time because her career progressed and he had to stay, and like I think something happened with him in his career, and then he had to like be homebound for a while and back at the head office. He couldn't deal with his wife being away all the time, and he was like really jealous of her and all that. And so he started having an affair with this younger woman. Yeah, he had like this whole affair with this younger woman. And eventually he got to the point where he thought that she was gonna like, oh no, you have to stay, please pick me, I'm your wife. But he just came to her one day, she found out about the affair, and he was like, right, I'm leaving. And she went, okay, see you later. And then so now she's in this position where this woman's in her 50s. She's got 2 grown kids. She's got this really fucking awesome career, earning 6-figure salaries, which is a lot in the UK. And then the guy, right? He's with this really horrible sort of like loveless marriage with this younger woman who just, she's not interesting. She's boring. He only went with her because like he thought she was hot. She had a kid by a previous boyfriend, so he's raising another man's kid, and he's got a newborn baby in his 50s.
Yikes. Yikes.
I was like, you fucking
and she is living her best life.
Yeah.
She is living her best life. Good for her. Well, I mean, isn't there a statistic, and I don't know exactly the numbers, that after marriage or divorce or death, it's usually the men who will get married quickly, whereas a lot of women are choosing to be like, whew,
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
just be single for a long time.
Just
Like,
be on my own for a while.
think of my uncle. So I have an uncle who he and his girlfriend, I think they hate each other, but he doesn't know how to be alone. He has never had to cook for himself, clean up after himself, do his own laundry, like typical old school Portuguese guy. So he doesn't know how to be on his own or take care of himself. So he is trapped in this hateful relationship because he doesn't know how to feed himself or wash his own clothes. Like
Hilarious. That I know. I've known a few women over the years who they find that when they're in their mid to late 50s, it's almost impossible finding a decent bloke that wants the same things they want, because like they tend to find guys that they just want like somebody to do their laundry and mother them and cook their dinners for them, and they're like, no, that I've left that relationship. This is why I'm on the dating market.
exactly. Exactly. This is why we have cats.
Yeah, exactly.
Fade to black, bitch.
Fade to black. We should play the Metallica song "Fade to Black" in the background.
I don't know that we can afford the rights to that song. Enjoy the rest of your day, fuckface.
Have fun. Spunk bucket.
Yep.